Hi everyone, myself Asa from the Brainalytics. Welcome to Brainalytics podcast series. Today we have Mr. Abhishek Sharma, Senior Director of Business Development and Customer Success at Credgenics. Credgenics, an AI-powered platform enabling the customer engagement and repayment journey for financial institute with over 19 years of experience across the solution sales, technology consulting, strategic partnership, and Mr. Sharma has worked closely with the banking, financial, and insurance leaders to drive the operational efficiency and digital transformation at AI led automation. Hi, Mr. Sharma, how are you feeling today?
Hi, I'm great, and I'm super excited because I think this is a great event and a place to be in. Thanks for having me here.
So, the very first question that I would like to start with is take us through your professional journey. What has inspired you to get into the expertise in fintech domain and collection technologies to achieve the customer success?
Sure. I'll try and be crisp of the 20 years of experience that I have. I think in the last 3 years or 4 years, I've been on the crossroads of being in a fintech, working with large enterprise organizations on their critical, large-scale digital initiatives, and also around the space where we are automating an orchestration layer of how to redefine the communications with the customers. So this has been, I think, the recent development, and I was quite intrigued. And I've always wanted to work on large, complex, and voluminous problems, which is what I think the collections, the repayment space gave me. And that's how I was more intrigued and interested in to jump into this kind of environment. And specifically at Credgenics, I think we've been scaling very fast and we've been solving this problem right at the core of it, which is where I think I've been interested and I've shaped my career into this here.
Great to know this. So Abhishek, in insurance industry is it's rapidly, embracing the digital transformation. What key changes are you currently witnessing in this space?
I think, of course, most of the industries, as you see in the last couple of years, have transformed for various reasons. Insurance is no different. And there has been a major change in the way that the insurance portfolios operate now, because we're sitting at a large base of human population which we need to cover. There is a humongous gap in terms of the number of policies that we have today, which is a coverage of around 3.7% in India, which is globally upwards of 7%. So we have a huge base there. And these customers come in from very, very varied segments. And the behaviors of the customer, the digital literacy of the customers, and their needs, their paying capacity, etc., is very, very varied. Because you're standing at that mammoth of a base with such unique differentiations and cohorts, the industry has to change drastically as well in the terms of how it is responding to your basic matrices of acquisition, your retention, renewals, etc. So I think now is the time where the customers do not get enabled with the one shoe fit all kind of strategies of communication. So which is where there is a drastic change of how the operating models have been with insurance companies before, and also on the servicing side, because it's become more and more critical to service your customers now. So I think these are two major elements of the change that have transformed the insurance industry in the recent times.
Okay, so how important is customer experience and digital engagement to improving the policy renewal and premium collection today?
I think customer experience and engagement is the core of and fundamental of how the matrices of any business lie today, including the insurance. And you would see that the customers now would only revert and respond at their convenience.
Right.
So which means it becomes important for us to understand the persona of the customer, do a personalized communication to the customer, be there where they need you, and be there where and how, at what time, with what language, proficiency they want to interact with you. So which is where we have to change the models to interact with the customer, and customer is king at the end of the day. And hence, we have to be very, very critical of the fact of how we orchestrate and execute this. We've been talking a lot about various channels and what can be leveraged. And we've grown from basic fundamental channels of SMS, email to talking about AI tools and other newer channels which are available in the market. But then at the end of the day, this needs to be orchestrated with the focus on the customer, with hyper-personalization and segmentation that would work from a customer experience standpoint, I think.
Yeah, sure. So how is Credgenics supporting insurance companies in digitalizing the repayment customer outreach?
I think it's all about your continuous engagement with the customer. Once you acquire a customer, it is important for you to have the sentiment coming through in a very ongoing manner and not just at the event of the renewal, because there's such a big delay and a long gap between when you acquire a customer to the renewals of, let's say, a year. You lose track of communications with the customer and you don't know the sentiment of the customer when it comes to that point, and you see a lot of attrition there, which is where I think it becomes important to solve this problem. And where we come into play is to becoming a fundamental orchestration layer, which I think, and this is also another thing that I would want to recommend my peers in the industry from an insurance standpoint, that don't look at it from a tool deployment perspective, all the channels that you can use in standalone and silos. And while they're evaluating all these solutions and use cases, they should look at it like a transformation layer on the operating model. And when you change that, Credgenics play a very, very critical role of how do you have a single orchestration layer and a platform to enable all of these channels with the intent capturing capacity and the right model to interact with the customer in the time, with the right message at the right time, and with the intensity of what the customer nudge needs. So we're enabling that for all of them in a place where you can define a lot of models and you do a plug and play with all of your data, analytics, data science models to bring out scores. So amalgamate all of that together and then stitch your strategy and execute it. I think that's what we are trying to solve for, the whole complexity. And I understand that my response is also seemingly complex, but I think that's the simplification that we bring in the execution.
So, Abhishek, what advice would you give to insurance leader who is looking to, accelerating the digital adoption?
I think I would definitely want to pass on this advice and a message that uh, we've always had a journey of reaching to a certain place where we could evolve, adopt newer technologies at a certain pace. And there is always an element of data security, implementation, scaling it up, etc. But I think what and where we stand today is where the disruption is happening even faster. So we need to look at the partners who can actually scale it up and be audit ready from a compliance and regulation perspective, at the same time giving you the best of the breed of solutions in a single orchestrated layer. I think that's where we come into play, and I would want to recommend and encourage my friends there who are the insurance leaders to look at small pilots to start with, which can then be scaled on the basis of the matrices that they will see improving quickly. Because this solution where we are deploying technologies to be able to scale work like humans with a handshake of humans, which is what we can make possible with a single player and a partner who can work with them and enable that for them. So I think that's the advice and the offer, where we can look at the orchestration and the modules coming together as a single layer of modality to operate on how we do the customer communication and how are we measuring our matrices and improving the matrices of renewal, retention, cross-sell, upsell, and the growth, of course.
Rightly said. So, since Credgenics is already a renowned brand, working with closely top-notch banking and financial institute companies like NBFCs and fintech, what is there for insurance sector? And also, I would like to add to it, like, what is the differentiating impact that you guys are creating
Sure.
in the collection domain and insurance sector?
I think I'll answer it in two parts. The first piece is because we already serve so many banks and NBFCs at scale, and we've got our own learning curve over these years working with these customers. So we've learned how to simplify the complex problem statements that they give us and throw at us. How do you really pick up the most impactful elements of what you can solve for? And at the same time, how do you become an execution partner which can actually drive it end to end and not just provide a platform for them to serve with their own teams and capabilities and skill set? So we don't limit it to that extent. So what we bring here is the same modality that we can implement on the insurance segment as well, because we've run it at scale and done it for the banking and the lending ecosystem, and solve the matrices for them at multiple fronts in terms of how we've improved their bounce rates to collections efficiencies to cost of collections and all of that. The same can be applied on the matrices of insurance here, which can be really testified very, very quickly. So we could improve their communications, where you would see that the engagement improves, the customer cross-sell, upsell, the growth improves, the retention, of course, is the most important element because the largest base and the profitability comes in from there for the insurance. So we could improve that matrices very quickly from a execution standpoint, and also then give them the ability to scale that at their own pace as well. When they are ready to deploy their own teams, their intelligence, their data science models, they could actually leverage the platform themselves, and they do not need us to serve them on a managed services standpoint. So we handhold them to show them how the results can be achieved, and then we hand it off to them to be able to scale on the platform side of things. I think that's what we can do for the insurance segment. Of course, in addition to how we are unique, I think there's a very simple statement that I would make, that today, all of the solutions that we're talking about, and I've been talking about on voice AI, speech analytics, sentiment
Or it is there
analytics,
in
and
the
all of that,
market.
everything is available in the market, but it's disjoint, and these are working in silos. So a lot of integration has to be taken forward. The analysis does not come through together. For the customer also, you're targeting them with different channels and not amalgamating the whole story of understanding how the response is, and then curating with a contextual communication the next time. That is not happening. And that's where we come into play. Because we bring all of these together, the execution becomes seamless, less friction, a better consumption, and better experience for the customer. Of course, I think that's where we are very, very unique. So the implementation time reduces, the results are seen much faster, and of course the cost is optimized.
Got it. Thank you so much. And the very last question would be,
Sure.
how was your overall experience at Bharat Insurance
Sure.
and Bharat FinTech Summit and
I think
Awards?
the name aptly says, right, this is about the Bharat. And I think we are standing at a crossroads of exploding in terms of the potential that we have in this country, and specifically around the industries of insurance. We're scaling it enormously well. And there are these organizations who are coming up with newer and interesting products with hyper personalized offer to the customers. I think we definitely have a very, very interesting forum today, and I heard some of these conversations happening across the board of how the sales should scale up, what are the elements that we need to bring in terms of the credit side of things. So I personally feel that these forums are very, very important for everybody to come on page and start leveraging these technologies, because all of them have their own experiences to share. And when they come together, I think it's a promising ecosystem that helps others to get confident about leveraging technology, bringing some of those ideas into life, and executing at scale at their own end. So I am absolutely zapped with the kind of audience that we had here, and completely echo the whole sentiment of adoption and transformation that was being talked about.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank
Abhishek
you.
Sharma, for being here with us. And this was Mr. Abhishek Sharma. Thank you so much.
Thank you.